I know I've already covered this last year, but if we're celebrating the 35th anniversary of the Santa Claus, we should celebrate the entire. We should do a review of the entire franchise, including the Santa Claus series. So today's is the Santa Claus 2, and the released all 8 years later in 2002, which is kind of interesting. Wonder what took 8 years for it to happen. So it's about Santa Claus, aka Scott Calvin, who is his time as Santa is expiring, but and in order to prevent that, he needs to get married with a Miss Claus. And while that's happening, he make him and the two elves makes a toy Santa as a brief replacement for him, while he's looking for a new for his Miss Claus. And then but then later he also needs to have a conversation with Charlie, who is becoming a big troublemaker throughout the movie. But then he meets up with his principal, Carol Newman, played by Elizabeth Mitchell, and they get along. And both Scott and Carol fell for each other and have a nice time together until he decided to tell her he's Santa, but she doesn't believe him. And then it feels like his time as Santa would be over, and also the toy Santa would go crazy and sell every kid coal and make toy soldiers as his troop, as his army, and dress up like a black like a dark soldier, and and he gets and Scott gets the help from the Tooth Fairy to get back to the North Pole, and then later him, and then Carol, and then Charlie, uh, and the other elves come to save the day and save Christmas. And it ends with Scott getting and Carol getting married and becomes Santa Claus and Mrs. Claus. And I thought this film again is wholesome and kind of cute, especially with the scenes with Scott and Carol, especially with the scene where they're like in this almost like a sleigh, but it's kind of that was kind of a sweet scene. I thought the scene where Scott gives presents to everybody and then ending it with Carol is a very wonderful scene. I really thought that scene was really good. That was fun at first. Then later with the Carol part is kind of cute. Um, and I thought the humor in this is much funnier, which mostly comes from the toy Santa. He's a very hilarious and villain. I thought he was fun to watch, where he's like the Santa who is very silly and tries to do something but not doing the right thing by giving every kid coal and ruin Christmas, and try to stop Scott Calvin from doing, and Scott Calvin was trying to stop him before he can do it. And every line he gives and things that he does were like drinking cocoa, or telling a knock-down joke, or making a Buzz Lightyear reference. You're a strange little man. It makes me laugh. He is absolutely hilarious. I think he's one of the best characters of the movie, and one of the best parts of the film in general. I thought Charlie was kind of a little bit unlikable since he was being a a a troublemaker. Even after Scott tells him not to, he's doing it. After after Scott tells him to not to do it, by making a honestly hilarious paint on the lockers, and Scott is punished for it and is told to wash out the paint, and almost what was doing more trouble by throwing snows at Carol's house before he realizes that Scott and Carol are dating, though he was thankfully Charlie was safe. He didn't get in trouble for it. And he gives up on it when he realizes Carol and Scott are together and convinces Carol to be with Scott and to save Christmas. And I thought that was interesting development. But he was kind of a little bit kind of unlikable at first. At the first of the first, at the first second acts of the movie. But I thought the scene with him and his sister meeting like Uncle Scott as Santa was a touching scene. It was kind of cute. I liked it a lot. Um, and I thought the big climax where they all fight robots, Toy Santa and the Toy Soldiers was an epic climax where they throw snowballs and spray at the Toy Soldiers and Scott and Toy Santa. Scott is trying to stop Toy Santa from giving all the kids coals. And I like how his punishment, he gets, uh, I guess, at first it seemed like he was gonna be destroyed, but he is still shows up, and honestly, the hilarious post credits musical number like song with Carol, and there's a scene with the Toy Santa dancing with the more toyish Toy Santas, and he feels really pissed that they're not doing what he's doing. I thought that was hilarious. And I thought that's again that scene at the credits was fun. Was hilarious, honestly. Overall, I thought Comet was a funny has some funny scenes also in this movie. So overall, the Santa Claus 2 is a solid addition to the Santa Claus franchise, and I'm glad I saw it. So, what do you guys think of Santa Claus 2? And Merry Christmas, Tim Allen and Elizabeth Mitchell. And stay tuned for tomorrow where we're gonna say hello to Jack Frost and we'll probably wish we were not Santa Claus.